The millionaire finds two beggar children abandoned on his farm and spots a shocking detail. It was a night like no other, a cool autumn evening where the trees whispered secrets and the wind carried an eerie chill. Edward Grant, the enigmatic billionaire known for his reclusive lifestyle, roamed through his sprawling estate like a phantom. The grand archways of his Victorian mansion loomed above him. Every shadow a reminder of the banked fires in his chest that had turned to ash long ago. This place, his fortress of solitude, felt more like a prison, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shapes across the manicured lawn, Edward stumbled upon a sight that pulled him from his isolation. There, huddled against the rough barn wall, were two children, skinny and barefooted, their clothes tattered like forgotten memories. The orange glow of the twilight danced along their fragile figures. They were like specters, remnants of a past he couldn't forget, their wide, fearful eyes piercing through his cold exterior. Edward felt an urgency swell inside him, stirring memories he had buried deep. The warmth of laughter, the sound of a child's play, all eclipsed by the shadow of loss that gripped his heart. "Who are you?" He nearly choked on the words, his voice raw, just like the chilling air. The girl, no more than 8, clutched her brother Jonah tightly, their breaths visible in the cooling dusk. Something in their faces sparked a flicker of recognition. It was impossible to ignore how they contrasted so sharply with his opulent surroundings, their pale skin against the deep brown wood of the barn, glistening in the fading light. Every detail of their frailty stirred something profound within him, bouncing echoes of guilt off the stone walls of his grief. Suddenly, Edward became aware of a cracked photograph sticking out from the pocket of the girl's ragged clothing. He moved closer, the air heavy with unspoken words, and discovered a striking resemblance to someone he once loved, a girl named Lily. His heart raced. Could it be mere coincidence, or was there something more? But just as quickly as hope glimmered, it was snatched away. A figure emerged from the shadows. Agnes, the relentless social worker, whose reputation for tearing families apart was well known. Her eyes glinted with cold authority as she approached, ready to separate these children from him, from any chance of safety or kindness. "No, you can't take them," Edward shouted, desperation launching from his throat. The aura of their innocence collided with his guilt, igniting a fire he thought extinguished. "Step aside, Mr. Grant. They belong in the system," Agnes retorted, her voice steady and unsettling. As the chills settled in his bones, another alarming thought surfaced. There was more to Lily and Jonah than he understood. More than just their wretched circumstances and the bond that yanked at his heart. Were their fates intertwined with his own tragic choices? Time felt suspended as Edward wrestled with the weight of this new reality. A world where a single decision could unravel years of solitude. Were his own wounds the reason he might lose them before he even knew what it was to hold them close? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button down there to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And since you're here, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Edward's heart pounded heavy in his chest. The desperate children, the looming threat of Agnes. It all felt like a tempest within him, swirling, pulling him apart. He had been alone for so long, surrounded by opulence, yet never so empty. And as Agnes moved closer, he felt a darkness creeping in, threatening to swallow every like he had discovered with these children. "Please," he whispered, "just give me a chance. They're lost. They need someone." Agnes's expression hardened. They need a stable environment. But then, out of nowhere, an unexpected sound sliced through the tension. A sharp crack, followed by the distant growl of thunder. The air sparkled with an ominous hum, and suddenly the ground beneath them trembled. "What was that?" Jonah's voice was small and trembling. Edward's eyes darted around, a primal fear curling in his stomach. The children clutched each other closer, and he rushed to kneel before them, trying to shield them from the encroaching darkness. "Stay close to me," he said, his voice fierce like a protective wall. Then a blinding flash illuminated the sky, and the ground shook again, more violently this time. A deep rumble echoed through the expanse of the estate. Trees swayed as if in a desperate dance, and Edward glanced up, panic gripping him. "Agnes!" he yelled, overwhelmed, but her face showed only a cold determination, unmoved. She reached for her phone, about to call for emergency help, when another crack echoed, different this time, sharper, like glass shattering. Another breathless moment passed in stillness, charged with fear. Then, from the depths of the forest lining his estate, a figure emerged. Stumbling, dart-ridden, disheveled, a woman, wild-eyed and gasping for breath, dressed in ripped clothing that clung to her frail form. "Edward!" she half screamed, half croaked, a voice he thought he'd never hear again. It cut through the air, sharp and piercing. His pulse raced, recognition slicing through the fog of surprise. "Lily," he breathed, shock rendering him momentarily speechless. The girl in front of him bore the weight of familiarity and pain that gripped his heart. But how could this be? "Lily, you're—" Words caught in his throat. The implications spun like a whirlwind. His thoughts tangled together as he stood, frozen, trying to understand this impossible mirage of time. "Help me!" she gasped, collapsing to the ground with a shuddering breath, clutching her stomach. "They're coming! They won't stop! I need to—" Agnes moved back, eyes wide, disbelief mingling with fear. This was no longer a mere encounter, no simple threat. It was an unraveling. Edward felt the world shift. "Lily, what's happening?" he demanded, desperation crawling under his skin. But before she could respond, shadows flickered in the tree line, figures emerging, multiple shapes, dark and imposing. They moved with purpose, encroaching upon them. Edward's breath hitched. "Run!" he shouted, instinct kicking in. The children clung to him as he grabbed Lily's hand, pulling her to her feet. But the ground quaked again as the figures broke into a sprint. They were coming for them, coming to take everything once more. And Edward found himself spiraling anew, thrust into a chaotic storm of choices, where secrets would unravel, truths would rise, and bonds would be tested like never before. "Why are they after you?" he shouted, fury and fear battling for control. But Lily's face twisted in pain, and as she looked up, her eyes told him everything he dreaded. All the pieces began to fit together into a horrific puzzle that shattered his understanding. Somewhere together, a picture held a hidden truth, and as shadows closed in, he realized his life was spiraling down a path he never thought he'd take again. "Edward, please believe me," she gasped, the urgency in her voice slicing through the chaos. And in that moment, under the weight of their approaching fate, everything he knew hung in the balance, tangled with the truth lying in wait. "Edward, please believe me," she gasped, the urgency in her voice slicing through the chaos. In that moment, everything hung in the balance. Shadows crept closer, dark and unyielding. Edward felt a surge of protectiveness flood his veins, overwhelming him in ways he hadn't felt in years. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and he tightened his grip on Lily's hand, ready to pull everyone into the safety of the barn. But before they could make a move, a deafening roar split the air. Edward froze, eyes wide. He turned to the tree line, where the shadows now morphed into forms, figures cloaked in black, their faces hidden. And right behind them, something monstrous emerged. A hulking shape crashed through the trees, branches snapping and flying in all directions. "What is that?" Jonah's voice trembled, drenched in terror. Edward's heart raced. It was a beast like nothing he'd ever seen. Eyes aflame, teeth bared, a growl like thunder. The air thickened with dread. Just when he thought the chaos couldn't escalate further, Lily collapsed to the ground, the color draining from her face. "Lily!" he shouted, dropping to her side. Panic surged as he cradled her. "What's wrong? I can't breathe," she panted, face twisted in pain. Suddenly, his world spun. In that instant, everything unraveled. A flash of memories burst in his mind. Lily, laughing, the warmth of a soft smile, whispers of love and hope. But as he looked down at her, all he could see was fear and desperation. "Make it stop!" she cried out, fingers clawing at the ground. The beast roared again, closer this time. Edward's spine tingled with nausea. But then he saw it, a small object clutched in Lily's hand. He reached out and with trembling fingers pried it from her. Cusp! A locket! His heart raced as he recognized it, the very locket he had given her years ago. Holding it up, he saw the photo inside. A picture of him, Lily, and a tiny girl he didn't recognize, sitting between them. But the girl, she looked strikingly like Jonah. "What the hell?" Edward whispered, confusion washing over him. In that moment, the beast charged, breaking the tension like a frail twig. "Run!" he yelled, adrenaline propelling him forward. He grabbed Jonah and pulled him close, screaming for Lily to get up. But as she struggled to her feet, the beast lunged. Edward had no time to think. He shoved his body against the children, shielding them from the attack. The impact was brutal, sending them sprawling to the ground, dust and dirt clouding in the air. Somehow, through it all, he managed to push up, heart racing, only to find Lily staring at him with an expression that sent chills through his bones. It was fear, yes, but also something darker. "Edward," she whispered, voice trembling. They know everything." His mind raced, connecting the dots, yet flying apart at the same time. Everything he thought he knew shattered like a glass window. "What do you mean?" he asked, feeling the weight of impending doom. "The locket. It's a key to their past, our past. We're not just connected. I can't tell you everything now," she panted, still reeling from what had just happened. The ground shook again as the beast circled them, its shadow looming over them like a storm cloud ready to burst. And in that instant, every moment of regret, every choice he ever made loomed so large around him. "Edward," she said again, and this time he saw tears streaming down her face. "Please, don't let them take us again." Just then, the sky exploded with light. A blinding surge ignited the night, an enormous flash, leaving him momentarily blinded. In that piercing light, a presence materialized, a figure clad in silver, impossibly radiant, stepping between them and the beast. Time stood still, and as Edward blinked into the bright chaos, his mind screamed with questions. Who was this figure? What did it mean? For him, for Lily, for everything he thought he knew? But the truth that was unraveling before him held the power to change everything. And in that moment, he realized they were all tied in ways he could never have imagined. And the shadows were just beginning to reveal their secrets. The figure in silver stood tall, a glimmering beacon against the monstrous shape prowling near. "Stay back," it commanded, voice booming and resolute. The energy crackled like lightning, creating a swirling atmosphere, thick with tension. Edward felt his heart thunder. He had never seen anything like this. "Who are you?" he shouted, somehow clinging to hope, while terror gnawed at his insides. "Your protector," the figure announced, taking a step forward. But before Edward could comprehend, before he could grasp the meaning of the glimmering savior, the beast lunged. In a flash, chaos erupted. The beast lunged forward, a growl frozen in time, snapping its jaws as it met the silver shield. A blinding light enveloped everything. Edward shielded his eyes, but he could feel the heat radiating. And then it happened. A pulse rippled from the silver figure, and the beast halted. Time stood still as the ground shuddered beneath them. The light faded. Only now it revealed the unexpected. Edward's breath hitched as he stared, mouth agape. The silver figure was no longer just a blurry protector. It transformed, taking the familiar shape of someone he thought he'd lost forever. "No, it can't be." The words choked in his throat. "Mom?" The figure was unmistakably her, his mother lost to him in the dark corridors of memory, standing before him as if time had folded. The shock crashed over him like a wave. How could she be here? Alive? But then he saw the flicker in her eyes. They hardened, turning glassy as the beast regained its footing. "Edward, listen," she cried, urgency spilling from her lips. "You must understand." "Understand what?" he snapped, anger mingling with the confusion swirling around him. "You left. You never came back." "No, they took me. The same people after Lily and Jonah. You must run." Shock twisted his gut. Fear shrouded everything. "But why?" Before she could answer, the ground shook violently, and the beast charged again. Edward grabbed the children, tugging them close. "We can't stay here." "Edward, no!" His mother reached out. Desperation painted across her features. "If they catch you." But with an explosive roar, the beast lunged, and instinct kicked in. Edward turned to run, pulling Jonah and Lily along. But something clamped around his wrist, a heart-stopping grip. "Don't! You'll only make it worse!" His mother's voice rang in his ears, laced with a hint of fear he had never heard before. In his frantic escape, Lily screamed, "It's coming!" The beast was gaining ground. Thunder rolled in the distance, and just as it leaped, he felt the world tilt. A flash of light erupted again. An explosion, merging reality with something surreal. And suddenly, everything shifted. His mother stood there still, but the one he loved most began to shimmer, fading in and out as if struggling to exist. "Mom!" Edward yelled, straining against the pull of darkness. "Protect them!" she cried, urgency bleeding into her words. "You're the key! What you hold, the locket! Its power is greater than you know!" Just then, the beast merged into the shadows, darkness swirling around them, growing more intense. And then came the revelation like a hammer, striking rock. The entire world shifted. Memories rushed to fill in gaps he had never acknowledged. The locket in his hand glowed fiercely, casting shadows around them, and he felt a surge rush through him. The truth crashed against his heart, and suddenly he understood. The connection wasn't what he thought. their lives intertwined in ways his hurt mind struggled to grasp. No! He felt the panic escalate. You're my mother! But what does it mean? The shadows twitched, and he knew. His heart raced as the chilling reality dawned. You're not here to save me, are you? Before her lips could part, dark waves surged forward, swallowing the air. Edward took a staggering step back. The locket pulsing like a heartbeat in his palm, echoing secrets that tangled destinies in a net of horror and surprise. Then, blinding light exploded again, swirling around them, forcing his eyes shut. "Edward!" came her voice, reverberating with an urgency that clawed at his chest. He felt the ground tremble beneath his feet as he realized someone was losing control. "What's happening?" he shouted into the chaos, fear pricking at his spine. Time seemed to halt, shadows curling around, concealing the truth that threatened to drown him. Yet, in the heart of that storm, everything that once felt secure tipped into uncertainty. And just like that, a new reality awaited, something darker than he'd ever faced, unearthing questions he couldn't begin to answer, and shattering every belief he'd clung to. The light dimmed, leaving him lost in the shadows, heart racing and breathless. And as the world around him spiraled, he felt the pull of fate tighten its grip, daring him to uncover what was yet to come. Edward blinked against the fading light, the world swirling around him, plagued by uncertainty. The beast circled, shadows flexing, and his mother's voice echoed in his mind. "You must protect them." Panic seized him. Then a crack of thunder roared through the skies. It was deafening, shaking the ground beneath them. The beast lunged again, snarling. Edward tightened his grip on the locket. In that moment, he suddenly connected the dots, like broken pieces of glass falling into place. The memories flooded back. Laughter, warmth, something forgotten. "Run!" he yelled, pulling Jonah and Lily away from the chaos. But in the brief moment of distraction, the locket pulsed gently in his palm, drawing his gaze. It felt warm, alive. Even, the air thickened with a strange energy, a current Trevor couldn't shake. In his focus on the locket, he didn't see the beast's claws striking. Searing pain shot through him like a lightning bolt. A claw had torn through his shoulder, and he was flung to the ground like a rag doll. His vision blurred, colors spinning. "Edward!" he heard Jonah's voice, but it sounded distant, muffled. Then something incredible happened. The locket shattered in his hand, sending a blinding light bursting around them. It consumed everything, a dome of light shielding them from the beast. Edward could barely breathe, the air crackling, the light burning bright, until, suddenly, the shimmering figure from before emerged again, even brighter now. But this time, it couldn't be mistaken. The face, hauntingly familiar, reflected his mother's features, but twisted with something darker. "Mom!" Edward gasped, heart racing. "Is it really you?" But she just looked at him, eyes fierce yet sorrowful. "Edward, you shouldn't have found out." Time hung still. Shadows shifted, and the air crackled with tension. Edward struggled to comprehend what she was saying. "What do you mean? You were gone! They told me you died!" With a single, haunting glance, she softened. "They did. The same people who took me, who took you. They didn't just erase me. They erased everything." As the beast roared, fury mixed with unease scrambled his mind. What does that mean? But before she could answer, the ground shook again, sending them stumbling "The truth is darker than you know," she shouted over the chaos. "The locket was the key to everything. It unlocks things." And just then, the sky exploded with crimson light, and a figure stopped in the center. It was another Edward, another version of him, looking just as lost and confused. "Wait!" he shouted. "Who are you?" The second Edward didn't respond, his eyes locked on their mother. Then, shocking clarity struck. A memory flooded over them like a tidal wave. "You should never have found this place, Edward," she yelled, tears flooding her cheeks. "You're not just a victim. You're part of it." "What do you mean?" he screamed, throat tight with confusion and fear. "Everything you've ever known, every choice you made, it's because of them. You were meant to awaken the darkness." In that instant, a sharp betrayal twisted through his heart. One moment, she was his protector. The next, she became a specter, revealing layers of deceit. The other Edward stepped forward, his face like a broken mirror, reflecting every emotion. He could no longer tell who was friend and who was foe. The ground fractured beneath him as wild shadows surged, threatening to engulf them all. Clarity cut through his shock. "Why would I want that?" She stepped closer, voice trembling. "Because, Edward, your life has always been a lie. And this moment, it's where it begins." A great silence fell, their combined confusion and the beast's growl blending into an eerie stillness. Heart racing, he knew everything had just changed. The shadows constricted, and as everything around him spun into chaos, Edward realized their destinies were forever intertwined. As the world dimmed, one question hung menacingly overhead. How deep did the abyss run? And who was truly leading him there? Edward blinked against the fading light, the world swirling around him, plagued by uncertainty. The beast circled, shadows flexing, and his mother's voice echoed in his mind. "You must protect them." Panic seized him. Then a crack of thunder roared through the skies. It was deafening, shaking the ground beneath them. The beast lunged again, snarling. Edward tightened his grip on the locket. In that moment, he suddenly connected the dots, like broken pieces of glass falling into place. The memories flooded back, laughter, warmth, something forgotten. "Run!" he yelled, pulling Jonah and Lily away from the chaos. But in the brief moment of distraction, the locket pulsed gently in his palm, drawing his gaze. It felt warm, alive even. The air thickened with a strange energy, a current Edward couldn't shake. In his focus on the locket, he didn't see the beast's claws striking. Searing pain shot through him like a lightning bolt. A claw had torn through his shoulder, and he was flung to the ground like a rag doll. His vision blurred, colors spinning. "Edward!" he heard Jonah's voice, but it sounded distant, muffled. Then something incredible happened. The locket shattered in his hand, sending a blinding light bursting around them. It consumed everything, a dome of light shielding them from the beast. Edward could barely breathe, the air crackling, the light burning bright, until, suddenly, the shimmering figure from before emerged again, even brighter now. But this time, it couldn't be mistaken. The face, hauntingly familiar, reflected his mother's features, but twisted with something darker. "No, it can't be." The words choked in his throat. Mom, the figure, was unmistakably her, his mother, lost to him in the dark corridors of memory, standing before him as if time had folded. The shock crashed over him like a wave. How could she be here? Alive? But then he saw the flicker in her eyes. They hardened, turning, glassy, as the beast regained its footing. "Edward, listen!" she cried, urgency spilling from her lips. "You must understand." "Understand what?" he snapped, anger mingling with the confusion swirling around him. "You left. You never came back." "No, they took me. The same people who took you, who took me. They didn't just erase me, they erased everything." As the beast roared, fury mixed with unease scrambled his mind. "What does that mean?" But before she could answer, the ground shook again, sending them stumbling. "The truth is darker than you know," she shouted over the chaos. "The locket was the key to everything. It unlocks things." And just then, the sky exploded with crimson light, and a figure stopped in the center. It was another Edward, another version of him, looking just as lost and confused. "Wait!" he shouted. "Who are you?" The second Edward didn't respond, his eyes locked on their mother. Then shocking clarity struck. A memory flooded over them like a tidal wave. "You should never have found this place, Edward," she yelled, tears flooding her cheeks. "You're not just a victim. You're part of it." "What do you mean?" he screamed, throat tight with confusion and fear. "Everything you've ever known, every choice you made, it's because of them. You were meant to awaken the darkness." In that instant, a sharp betrayal twisted through his heart. One moment, she was his protector. The next, she became a specter, revealing layers of deceit. The other, Edward stepped forward, his face like a broken mirror, reflecting every emotion. He could no longer tell who was friend and who was foe. The ground fractured beneath him as wild shadows surged, threatening to engulf them all. Clarity cut through his shock. "Why would I want that?" She stepped closer, voice trembling. "Because, Edward, your life has always been a lie, and this moment, it's where it begins." A great silence fell, their combined confusion and the beast's growl blending into an eerie stillness. Heart racing, he knew everything had just changed. The shadows constricted, and as everything around him spun into chaos, Edward realized their destinies were forever intertwined. Then a crack split the air, sudden and sharp. An unseen force erupted between the two Edwards, sending them crashing to the ground, their bodies colliding like wrecked cars. A blinding light shone from the locket, cascading over them, becoming a bridge between their realities. "Edward, it's time to choose," he heard another voice, a deep, soothing cadence vibrating through him, breaking through the chaos. From the light, a familiar face emerged, not his mother this time, but a woman he didn't recognize. Her eyes sparkled with wisdom, sadness, and an undeniable power. "You must make your choice. The fates wait for you alone." He stood frozen between the two versions of himself, each one holding a piece of a truth he was terrified to embrace. Fear gripped him as he finally understood. This decision could shatter everything he held dear or set him free in unimagined ways. But then something twisted in the air, a darkness rippled, and all at once memories erupted like fireworks. Images of his mother intertwined with visions of betrayal, love, and loss. "You are not who you think you are," she shouted, voice ringing through the chaos. Edward's heart dropped. "What does that mean?" And with a sudden flash, clarity pierced through the turmoil. He was not just the boy searching for his mother. He was the weapon forged in shadows, awakened to weave the very fabric of fate. Everything he had known, the anguish, the darkness, it all hinged on this very moment. The ground shifted, the air crackled, and Edward found himself enveloped in a power he had never known, caught in the churning tides of destiny. "Choose wisely," echoed around him, as reality twisted further, sending ripples of uncertainty pulsing through his veins. And just as the light dimmed, the shadows closed in, leaving him wondering, what path would he take? What truth awaited him beyond the horizon? And at what cost? Edward's heart raced as the ground trembled beneath him. Shadows danced, and the other Edward stood, confusion mirroring his own. "What do you mean?" he shouted, desperation clinging to his words. But just as the silver light started to flicker, building into something powerful, a cry pierced the air. "Edward!" Jonah's voice was shrill, filled with terror. The beast lunged, its growl rumbling like distant thunder. "No!" Edward gripped the locket tighter, the pulsing heat returning. In that moment, he realized the truth had deep roots, something ancient, hiding beneath the surface. Suddenly, a blinding flash exploded, enveloping them all in a brilliance so strong that everything around faded. He squeezed his eyes shut, heart pounding, standing between shadows and fate. When the light dimmed, everything felt wrong. The air thick with tension. Edward opened his eyes to find the other Edward gone. Instead, the shimmering figure of his mother stood clear, but her face was taut with shadows he had never seen. "Mom?" he breathed, confusion constricting his chest. "You're not safe here." Her voice cut through the fog, full of urgency. "I need answers," he yelled, frustration spilling over. "What's happening? Who am I?" But just as she began to speak, another figure emerged from the chaos. A tall man with sharp features, eyes piercing like daggers. "It's time to end this," he growled, voice dripping with disdain. Edward recoiled. The man moved swiftly, advancing towards them, sending a shiver down Edward's spine. "You've all played your part, but the game is over," he said, eyes narrowing, looking straight at Edward. In that instant, Edward felt a strange pull, a deep connection he didn't understand. "What do you mean?" he shouted, desperately trying to comprehend. With a flick of his wrist, the man revealed a dark, swirling void behind him. "You're not just a pawn, kid. You're the heir to something much darker." The words hit like a punch. Edward fell back, knees buckling. Behind him, he saw Lily and Jonah, fear etched on their faces, their innocence caught in the crossfire. "No, I'm not like you." Edward's voice trembled. The man stepped closer. "Oh, but you are. The blood that flows in your veins runs deep with shadows. Your mother hid the truth from you, wrapped in love." He smiled maliciously, as if savoring every moment of Edward's unraveling. "Stop! You're lying!" Edward shouted, shaking. But the man pressed on. "You're part of a legacy, a lineage that thrives on chaos, despair. Everything you feel, it's what you were born into. This is who you truly are." Edward's breath hitched. The weight of those words pressed down on him, pushing him into the dirt. Memories flickered before him, echoes of laughter, the warmth of smiles, but they twisted, darkened into something sinister. "No!" he gasped, fighting against the tide of despair washing over him. But just then, the beast roared, and in that sound, Edward felt something shift within him. A wave of energy surged, answering the call of the dark man before him. It was intoxicating. "Embrace it!" the man commanded, voice thunderous. "No!" Edward screamed, as shadows whispered around him. The pull grew stronger, the fabric of his reality unraveling further. Suddenly, light burst again, blinding, wrapping him in warmth. And somewhere deep within, he felt a spark, a memory, the vision of a girl, not Lily, but another face who looked just like her. No, it can't be. His mind raced as the realization hit. Jonah, he's... But the words hung in the air, unspoken. Then everything went silent. As he faced the truth, the shadows lunged, and Edward realized the game was only just beginning. Would he choose the darkness within him, or fight it? As the beast reared back, ready to strike, Edward stood at the precipice of his fate, every choice weighing heavy in his heart. The storm wasn't over. It had just started. Edward felt his heart pound like a drum in his ears. The shadows loomed closer, swirling around him like dark smoke. The beast huffed, its breath fogging the air. He tightened his grip on the locket, its warmth a desperate comfort as he faced the truth the dark man had laid bare. "No, I'm not part of this," he shouted, uncertainty rattling every word. But in the pit of his stomach, a deep ache told him he couldn't deny it any longer. A storm surged within him, fury and fear battling to take control. His mother stood before him, anguish painted on her face. "Edward, you need to trust me. They'll use you." The beast let out a growl that shook the ground. "Enough of this," the dark man hissed. "It's time you learned what you truly are." He took another step, shadows wrapping him in a sinister cloak. Edward's breath caught. The man raised his hands, beginning to weave a storm of dark energy that rippled in the air like waves of heat. "You're destined to take your place in the darkness. Embrace it, Edward." And then, as if time snapped in two, everything shattered in a blinding light. A flash so intense it stole the tension from the air. Edward squinted, and when he opened his eyes, he found himself standing alone, surrounded by a vast, empty void, filled only with the echoes of his heartbeat. "Jonah! Lily!" he cried out, panic gnawing at his insides. But there was no response, no sign of the children or his mother. "This cannot be," he gasped, fingers trembling. But then came a whisper, soft and haunting, swirling through the emptiness. "Edward." The voice was familiar. It danced around him like a breeze, curling into his ears. "Lily?" he sputtered, his heart leaping. But it was not her voice that came next. "Do you remember?" The dark man stepped from the shadows again. "You have much to learn, but it's not just about power." His eyes glinted with a dangerous knowing. "You hold the key to many secrets, including the past and those who are tied to it." "What do you mean?" Edward felt a chill crawl over his skin. "What secrets?" "We'll find out together." With a sudden flick of his wrist, the darkness swirled and transformed, revealing faded images of a past he had no memory of. A house full of laughter, a garden teeming with flowers, faces smiling down at him that felt distant, yet achingly familiar. Pain sliced through him like glass. "Stop!" He clenched his jaw. "I don't want to see this." But it was too late. The images peeled back layers of his mind, memories flickering with a life he'd never lived. Then, amidst the chaos, something shocking happened. "Look closer," the man urged, forceful, yet almost tender. Suddenly, Edward's stomach twisted into knots as he recognized a woman in the shadows, holding a baby close. It was his mother. But next to her stood a man who looked just like him. No, this can't be. Edward felt himself choke on the words. His heart raced as the truth spiraled out before him. "Is that?" "Yes," the other Edward said, stepping closer, a reflection of himself, each detail sharp and unsettling. "You are not simply a victim of circumstance. You are a part of something greater, something dark and twisted." As the realization hit him with the force of a tidal wave, the world around him began to tremble again. The beast roared in the distance, the darkness closing in. "What have you done?" Edward screamed, horror dawning. "Nothing you wouldn't have done yourself," You and I, we are bound by blood, the dark man hissed. Edward staggered back, pain radiating from his heart, spreading through his veins like fire. Was this true? Had everything he believed crumbled into dust? And just when he thought he might break, another voice, faint yet distinct, called out behind the darkness. "Edward, please!" He whipped around, eyes wide. "Mom?" But between them, the shadows shifted and roared, and it seemed everything hinged on what he would decide next. Could he really face the truth? And what would it mean for Lily, Jonah, and the fate of everything he fought so hard to protect? A chilling silence fell, holding its breath, while the terror of what lay ahead surged ever closer. What had he truly inherited, and could he escape it before it consumed him whole? Edward's heart raced as he confronted the dark man. Shadows loomed around them, thick and suffocating. He felt his grip on reality slip away, hanging by a thread. "Edward, listen!" his mother pleaded, her voice trembling, cutting through the chaos. "You're not just a pawn in this game. You have power within you. Don't let him manipulate you." But the dark man smirked, eyes glinting with malice. "You think she can save you? You're connected to darkness, Edward. Embrace it or be consumed." "Get away from him!" his mother shouted, stepping between them, her voice rising above the haunting growl of the beast. The shadows pulsed, and out of them, more figures appeared, shapes flickering in and out like ghosts. Edward squinted, recognition flooding him as he saw faces from his past. His childhood friends, loved ones, long lost. "Stop!" he yelled, hands trembling, heart pounding. "What do you want from me?" The dark man stepped closer, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're the key to unlocking the chaos. Your lineage is steeped in a legacy that shapes reality itself. In isolation, you were blind. Now the truth stands before you." The ground shook, and suddenly, a deafening roar erupted from the beast, shaking Edward to his core. He felt the pull of its energy, a wave crashing over him, igniting something within. "No!" he shouted, clenching the locket, heat surging through his palm. As it pulsed, memories flashed through him, images of laughter, twisted into screams, love becoming betrayal. "Edward, please." His mother's face twisted in anguish. "You must resist. You're stronger than this darkness." But the shadows threatened to engulf him, the wild power within swelling, awakening with every heartbeat. "Join me," the dark man urged, extending a hand as if offering a lifeline. "No!" Edward gasped. But then something shifted. A blinding light erupted from the depths of his soul, pushing back the shadows fiercely. In front of his eyes, the figures flickered and writhed. "Fight it!" his mother cried, desperation lacing her tone. "Don't give in. You have the choice." But just as his resolve hardened, the earth trembled violently, and an earthquake rippled through the underworld of darkness, splintering apart. Like a shattering glass, a brilliant white light surged up from beneath, swallowing the shadows whole. Then a sharp gasp cut through the air, silencing everything. "Edward." A voice, distant yet close, came from deep within the glittering brightness. "Lily?" He squinted against the glow, hope igniting within him. "Is that you?" To his shock, Lily emerged, not frail and scared, but strong, radiant like the sun. She stood amidst the swirling chaos, a beacon of light. "I'm here," she said, voice steady and bold. "You are more than what you think you are." As she reached out to him, a massive wave of energy exploded, the light forcing the dark man back, erasing the dark figures behind him. "No!" he shouted, fury twisting his features as he struggled against the surge. But as the shadows fell away, the air crackled with energy. The ground beneath them began to ripple and shake. "Lily, what's happening?" Edward yelled, his chest tightening, heart racing. "I'm freeing you, Edward, but there's more you must understand," she shouted, her eyes locked onto his. Time seemed to slow, the world around shifting like a dream. And then everything exploded. In an instant, Edward felt a sudden tug at his heart. The reality of everything he'd ever known began to unravel like a messy thread, and he gasped. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the true nature of their connection slammed into him like a tidal wave. "I'm your sister," she revealed, a thunderous crash echoing around them. The ground shook again, and reality blurred. Edward's vision darkened. Confusion struck him like a bolt from the void, rendering him speechless. "Your family's legacy is darker than you understand, more than blood. It ties us to ancient powers," she cried. And as he struggled to process the truth, the universe felt like it was folding inwards, leaving him gasping, questions rushing through his mind. Sister? The only family he thought he had was gone. The dark man remained, laughter cascading like water falling through rock. "Yes, and now the truth unfolds. You've always been part of this puppet show." The shadows retreated into the simplest darkness, but Edward stood still, reeling from the revelation. His life, spun from the threads of deceit, was now entangled in a web far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. His heart raced with fear and excitement, without knowing what this meant for him or the choices he'd have to make. "What happens now?" he gasped, clenching the locket once more. And there, in the dim light, uncertainty loomed over him, as mysteries entangled deeper than shadows, leaving the chilling question, what truly lay ahead? The light enveloped Edward, Lily, and Jonah, the air humming with energy as they stood together, hearts pounding, fear and hope fighting for dominance. "We are family," Lily shouted, determination shining in her eyes. "We can break this curse, together." Edward felt the warmth of her words weave through his soul, igniting a flame long buried. He stepped forward, drawing strength from their bond. "You're right. We can choose our fate." The dark man's laughter echoed, chilling them. "You think you can escape the shadows? You belong to this darkness." "No!" Edward shouted, voice steady. "We choose the light. We'll fight together." He gripped the shattered locket tightly, feeling its power resonate. Images flooded his mind. The love, the laughter, the anguish, and the connection that bound them. With a swift motion, he held the locket high, channels of light erupting in every direction. The bright energy surged, pushing the darkness back. Lily stepped beside him, a fierce look of resolve etched across her face. "You can't control us anymore." Jonah, trembling but brave, shouted, "We are stronger together." The ground beneath them trembled, and the beast roared, shadows coiling around it like tendrils grasping for their essence. But the light grew. Edward's heart raced, every beat resonating with their unified purpose. "Let's show them who we are," Edward cried, eyes locked on the dark man, who faltered, surprise flooding his features. As the radiant energy enveloped them, the world shifted once more. The figures from Edward's past flickered like ghosts, fading into the brilliance of the moment. He felt their presence, their belief infusing him with courage. "We are connected," he shouted, voice echoing against the dark. The beast staggered back, clawing at the light. That stung it. "You cannot defy your destiny!" The dark man howled, but Edward's laughter mingled with the rising energy. "You're wrong! Our destiny is shaped by our choices." The air thickened with their resolve, swirling into a storm as the shadows finally shrank away, retreating under the tide of brightness. "No!" the dark man bellowed, his control fracturing. "You will regret this." As the last of the darkness faded, a calm descended. The world around them transformed, revealing a serene landscape shimmering in the light. The beast and the dark man evaporated into nothingness, lost to the depths they'd emerged from. Edward turned to Lily and Jonah, tears in his eyes. "We did it! We're free! Together!" Lily smiled, a warmth radiating from her heart. "That's right. We have each other now." Jonah, full of newfound bravery, nodded. "What's next?" They stood there, their futures stretching before them like an uncharted path. Edward felt the weight of their past still linger, but it didn't crush him. It anchored him, grounding them in what truly mattered: family. "Where do we start?" Edward asked, hope igniting in his chest. "Every journey begins with the first step," Lily replied, smiling brightly. With hands clasped, they turned towards the horizon, ready to face whatever awaited them. Their laughter echoed, mixing with the soft breeze, a melody of freedom that would wrap them in light. But somewhere deep down, a lingering question remained. Had they truly escaped them? Dark legacy that haunted them? And somewhere in the shadows, a whisper echoed, waiting for the right moment to resurface. "Now, before you leave, listen closely. This is the moment to show your support. You must subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I can't wait to hear from you. And don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know about this ending. There's so much more to discover. Stick around and click on the exciting story at the end of the video. Let's unfold another thrilling tale together.